let this meeting come to order at 10:40. Thank you all for coming. When you go home today, tell your neighbors how much food they missed on a Saturday morning, all free. And also that, not the only thing they missed, they're going to miss a great presentation by our presenter here. So thank you for coming. Before we get on to the business at hand, I'd like to show you something that we recently did in the Paseos between Avenida Borella and the tennis courts over there down by Via Ramada. It's in our neighborhood. The neighborhood's 45 years old, and the post on the left was a signpost that has been there for years. And it was still there as of about 6 months ago. A Boy Scout saw that sign, and he said, wow, why don't we put those on every street that goes along there? From Via Rotella all the way to the tennis courts, there's 14 courts that intersect that Paseo. And a lot of people walk by there and say, wow, where am I? You know, they don't know what court they are. So this guy came up with this. I connected him with the Department of Transportation, and a friend of mine helped engrave the lettering in there, and the Boy Scouts did all the rest. They painted the white in there. The city did the post holders, the black things there, and they also put the cement into the ground for us. And then we had an event the other day where we all went out and stuck them in there and tightened them down. And there's a fellow that did it. His name is Jacob, down there at the bottom. He's earning his Eagle Scout badge. He lives on Via Ramada, and there's an example of the other ones. And there's the group that did it. There's a Cub Master in the middle there, a Boy Scout leader, the Department of Transportation, Chris Moresco, and some children, other Boy Scouts, and the Boy Scout's father and Boy Scout's sister, and there's me back in the back there hiding. So we had a lot of fun. It took us like about 4 months to get it all done, and back and forth, figuring out how to do it, and it was a learning experience. The Scoutmaster wants to do it in the other paseos on this side and also on the other side of Santa Teresa, so that's going to happen too. I just thought I'd bring that up. It was a fun thing to do, and we got something good going for the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was fun. We're going to do some more of that kind of stuff. So getting back to our business, as a routine matter, at the beginning of the meeting, we ask for the attendance of people who are members to approve the minutes that we show and make for the previous minutes. So at this one, I did send out the minutes to people, although it was a little bit late, but you have your quick thinking caps on and you can judiciously read our minutes. I'd like to show hands of people that approve both minutes that were sent to you. If you haven't read them, you can reply later. Any comments or additions they'd like to add? Okay, so you're not voting? Okay. All right. So does that mean that they're approved, Barbara?
Yes, they're approved.
Thank you. All right. The next order of business is Barbara.
So I'm going to do a few business things that should go fairly quickly. The first one is one that I'm very, very, very happy to do because much of some responsibilities that aren't normally the treasurer's responsibilities have fallen on me while the position of secretary was open. We now have a new secretary for the board. We are so excited. I'd like to introduce Amy Georgiadis, who is appointed by the board, but under our bylaws, board is entitled, can appoint, but it must be ratified at the next member meeting so that the members actually do vote on it. So Amy's been a Los Paseos resident for 5 years, She's a speech pathologist, and she works with kids with disabilities all around Santa Clara County. She's concerned about the neighborhood, and she wants to become actively involved. And she recognizes the importance of the role of secretary, and this is very key, to ensure good organizational processes and maintain the legally required records. It's a very important position. So I move that we vote to ratify Amy as secretary. Somebody second that?
I second.
Okay, Herb, thank you. And now we'll vote by a show of hands. This is just of the residents of Los Paseos neighborhood, which is between Monterey and Santa Teresa and from Bernal to Tulare Hill, and I think you know who you are. So those in favor of ratifying Amy as secretary? Yay. And everybody's voting who says, I'm not going to do it, right? Any opposed? Okay, Amy, welcome. We're now a ratified member of the board. Okay, so now the next item of business, and this is something that Amy would be doing in the future probably, nominations for the board. It's election time. The board is elected for 1 year, and that election will take place at our next meeting on December 7th, but now we have to announce that nominations are open if anybody would like to run for one of our positions. What our bylaws say is that the nominations are submitted in writing through the LPNA website or by email to any officer at least 30 days prior to the meeting when the election will take place. So we announce that nominations are open now. The nominations will close on November 30th, which is 30 days before the December 7th meeting. And at the December 7th meeting, we will vote. We'll inform people, all the people for whom we have email addresses by email of who the nominated candidates are, and we will elect the board at the next meeting. So there isn't any action we have to take today other than just making this announcement. We will also announce it by email to the people who weren't able to come today. I would like to let you know that the current board members, with the exception of Amy, who we haven't asked because she hasn't actually done her role yet, have expressed their intent to nominate themselves for the same positions in 2018. So it looks like we will have a full board at least for next year. And of course, if anybody chooses to run, then it would become our contested election, potentially. All right. The last thing I wanted to say, now this is in my role as treasurer. I wanted to tell you about the grant that we've applied for. Last year we had a CAP grant. I forget what CAP stands for. Something or other, for $1,600 from the beneficence of the city of San Jose, who believes that it's in the interest of the neighborhoods to have neighborhood associations. The largest cost that was covered by that was the National Night Out event. That was the biggest single piece covered under the grant. For this coming year, and the year runs, this one's a little different because of a timing differences here, October 2017 to September 2018. There's a new grant, and they've changed the name to Beautify San Jose Grant. And this is part of the mayor's initiative to beautify San Jose. It covers the same things that the old CAP grant covered, events and some of the organizational costs of the neighborhood association, but also specifically wants to elicit projects to improve and beautify the neighborhoods. So they've increased the amount available under the grant, and we've applied for the maximum $5,000 grant. So that's a good bit more significant than the previous grants. We'd still fund the National Night Out, or most of the National Night Out, but the largest item we've applied for is a project to add 10 shade trees to Las Paseos Park and some benches. We've been working with our city forest on a plan for the trees. We actually have a map of where the trees will go. We've worked with our city forest and selected what tree we would plant, but we didn't have the funding. So this grant gives us the opportunity to have the funding for that grant. And what grants have been awarded, so whether we'll actually have the money, we won't know until more toward the end of October. So that's just from a financial point of view what's going on, and we all have our fingers crossed that we get this next grant. So, thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. I'd like to add, along the lines of the National Night Out, I was at a meeting 2 weeks ago with Captain Johnson Bond, when she was there. He walked up to me and said, "You guys' National Night Out is the best in San Jose." I said, "What?" He said, "Yes, the best in all of San Jose." He said it that way. We had a real great National Night Out this year, thanks to our team.
Well, and the fact that we had a blues band who have agreed to come back next year.
Yeah. And Brian the Bubble Guy, if you've never heard of him. He blew bubbles as big as cars. They whacked it across the field. It was quite an event. Karen's not available today, so I'll just run quickly through what she's been championing quart mixers or block mixers. We had one several months ago over at her house. About 35 residents showed up. We had tents out there and we had some food, potluck type of thing. Sergio showed up and spent about an hour and a half there visiting us, talking amongst the neighbors, and it was a great time. And we're planning to do more and spread them out throughout our neighborhood, which is quite a big neighborhood. And we're asking if anybody would be interested in hosting it at like at the end of your court or block or something of that nature. We would help you do that, and you could gather around 3 or 4 blocks away from you, and we could have a nice little mixer, and we'd have some people from the city show up and have a good old time. So let me know and spread the word to your neighbors that if they want to do something like that, it's getting to know each other. I met some people that I've never met, and I've lived there 44 years in that neighborhood. So that's a good thing that we're doing. We're trying, and then also Herb and I and the board are trying to meet out at the park occasionally and have hot dogs at the park and just meet people as they walk by. There's a lot of young couples that take their kids for walks in the park over there in the evening time. It's a really nice park. Herb's little baby, that park. He really tries to take care of it.
Yeah.
And if you all haven't seen it, the newsletter, our second newsletter, Karen designed the newsletter originally, and
We have copies of the newsletter.
you want a copy? They're over there. It shows the things we've done since the last newsletter. So it's available on the website if you want to see it, and that's going to continue ongoing. So I'm kind of finished with the business. Barbara, anything else? We're going to switch around the order of doing things here because Mr. Borella has got some time constraints today. I'd like to introduce John Borella. He's the chairperson of the Santa Clara Valley Water District Board of Directors, representing South County, including the cities of Morgan Hill and Gilroy, and the unincorporated areas of San Martin and parts of South San Jose, the unincorporated areas. Chair Borella was appointed to the board on December 2015. He was elected by the voters in November of 2016, and his term expires in 2016. Chair Borella is a former Morgan Hill City mayor and a councilman. He serves on various water district committees, which include the Water District's Homeless Encampment and Pacheco Reservoir Exploratory Ad Hoc Committees, the Agricultural Water Advisory Committee, the Santa Clara Valley Water Commission, and a host, and the Joint Water Committees for Morgan Hill, Gilroy, San Felipe Division, Reach 1. He serves on the Board of Directors for Joint Venture Silicon Valley, the Local Agency Formation Commission, Morgan Hill Chamber of Commerce, and the Pajaro River Watershed Flood Protection Authority. He is also involved in the South County Regional Wastewater Authority and Safe Clean Water Independent Monitoring Committee. He doesn't have enough to do. Give him some more. Thank you very much for showing up here today.
Thank you for inviting me. That's great. I do all that? Yeah. It's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Let me get your slide up here.
Okay, great. So I'm John Borella, I'm the chair of the board. Very interesting, so that you'll know, 1968, we bought a home about a mile and a half from here, Foothills, Santa Teresa Foothills. And we bought a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home on about 1/8 of an acre in a cul-de-sac. Anybody want to venture a guess what we paid for that? A brand new home. This area was being developed. We had beautiful trees behind us. I'll tell you a story about that too. Our home at that time was $18,000. Brand new home that we moved into. This area was pristine and gorgeous, as it still is, but we had fruit trees as far as the eye could see. And I used to travel quite a bit on business. And One week we were gone for about 2 weeks. And when we came back, all the fruit trees were gone. 6 months later to a year, there were chimneys and TV antennas before cable and all that. So we made a decision. We lived here 8 years. And so we went for a drive one Sunday morning, and we went to Morgan Hill, and we went into this beautiful development like we did here in 1968. And in 1976, we bought a home in Morgan Hill. And today, I doubt very seriously if I could afford it. But then we paid $66,000 for a 3,000 square foot home on 8,000 square foot lot. It's pretty incredible when you think about the valuations then than what they are today. So let's talk water. So my wonderful assistant, Yolanda Pettis, is here to help me if I fumble. And my beautiful wife, Vivian, who we got married about, how many years ago? 52 years.
Oh, wow.
How do you like that?
Congratulations.
We have 3 daughters, 5 grandchildren, and no dogs. my daughters have that. Okay, so we're going to move forward here. The history of groundwater is so important to our region, so that you know, there are 5,000 wells in District 1, which is what I represent. District 1 runs from eastern hills of Evergreen to Silver Creek, Santa Teresa area, south through the open space and farmlands, south of us to Morgan Hill, San Martin, the unincorporated area, and the city of Gilroy. So the history of groundwater, it all began in Santa Clara in 1929. The job of managing groundwater. So much water had been pulled out of the ground and crops of the people of the Valley of Heart's Delight, which we were called then, actually was sinking, mostly called subsidence, if you're familiar with that terminology. Much like the Central Valley has been experiencing these past 7-8 years because of the drought. That's called subsidence. And it's something we all guard against today. Back then, community leaders were concerned about having to dig deeper and deeper wells and the increased costs of pumping water. So they formed the Water District and developed a plan to build reservoirs to capture rainwater, to percolate it into the aquifers, through the percolation, ponds that you see along the rivers. And if you travel south on Monterey Road going into Morgan Hill, you'll come across what looks like small lakes. One week they're bone dry, then you'll drive by again, and another week and they're filled. Those are the ponds that we use to replenish the aquifers throughout this region. And for your information, you live in this region, so you're probably purchasing your water from either Great Oaks Water or San Jose Water. We are a wholesaler, so we sell our water to the retailers, and they are retailers, and that's who you get your water from. If you're in the South County and you own a well, you will be purchasing your water directly from the Water District. Or if you live in the city of Morgan Hill or the city of Gilroy, you will be buying your water, purchasing your water from that organization, from those 2 cities. So that's how this works. If you have questions along the way, just raise your hand. Okay, so what we do is we have 3 tenets that we are very, very protective of and that we work on, and that's clean, reliable, potable water, flood protection, and healthy creeks and ecosystems. Managing groundwater is still a very, very important part of our mission. This is to provide Silicon Valley with safe, clean water for a healthy life, environment, and economy. And so these are our 3 tenets, and this is what we live by. And we're going to touch a little bit on each one of these as I go through my presentation. So who are we? There are 7 board members. There are 7 districts that we represent. As I indicated, I'm on the far right here, the guy with a real nice smile, and all the way up to Palo Alto in that region. Now, interestingly enough, some of the water that comes into the region that we manage comes from Hetch Hetchy, which is the northern part of our water district that is going into Mountain View, Palo Alto, and all the way up to the PUC San Francisco, which provides them the water in that particular region. So we're really spread out as far as how we manage our water and what districts we have. And these are our representatives. You may know some of them. All great people that represent you, and we're all elected. And we're each elected for a 4-year term. So you'll be aware of that.
During the general elections?
Yes. and that'll be coming up next year. There'll be, I think, 4 of us that will be running again. Yes?
So you buy water from San Francisco or SGSU for that district?
Yeah, what we do is we have an agreement with the PUC San Francisco for a certain portion of the Santa Clara area, which is north, which would include Mountain View, Palo Alto. They're the only ones that take that water in. Okay. Now, we are looking to expand our purchasing agreement from that region, but that's another story. I'll get into that if you really want me to, but there's a lot to cover here. Okay. But that's something that we're really exploring for future water supply. All right, water. Y'all know what that is. The Water District Works is founded in the 3 pillars, which I just acknowledged. Our board is charged with aggressively protecting the quality of water. So we bring those who we serve, nearly 2 million of you in this valley, that we're responsible to provide clean, safe, potable drinking water. And as I mentioned, we have 15 cities that we work with in the county, and approximately 5,000 well owners that are mostly south of this region in District 1. But unless you have a well on your property, you most likely do not receive a water bill from the Water District. A diverse portfolio ensures reliability. Now, this is really interesting. Our water supply is not all local. We import water from outside our county, as we just spoke about, through the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta. How many of you were aware of that? Good. And it forms an important part of our water portfolio, helping us to weather droughts and meet demand. In an average year, we import 55% of our water. We get 30% from local sources, 10% from water conservation, which, by the way, congratulations on conservation, because we have proven through the Santa Clara Valley Water District that conservation works extremely well, and you have all contributed to make that work and keeping our water supply where it needs to be. And 5% of the water is recycled water, which is another very important part of our portfolio and our program. Okay, are you familiar with this? California Water Fix. Raise your hand.
The water tunnel?
Pardon me?
The water tunnel?
Yes. Are you familiar with the tunnels?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, those that are not raising your hand, that concerns me. Very much so, because your water district is about to take a position on this, which is the single largest water project in the state of California since the 1960s, when the water canals were built from the Delta to Southern California. The water district has been studying this for the past 10, 12 years. It's come down to, within 2 weeks, on October 17th, your board of directors are going to be taking a position. Either we're going to opt in, which means invest in this project. The cost to invest in this will be from $600 million to $1 billion. That's at the beginning. This is probably a 20 to 30 year build project, and these tunnels are north of the Delta and the Sacramento River. 2 tunnels, approximately 40 feet wide, 50 feet deep, that will extrude water from the Sacramento River into the Delta area. Further south, more water for the Central Valley, for Southern California, and potentially for the Water District and the valley that we represent. So this is a big deal, folks. It's been in the papers, it's been on the television. Mercury News has been giving their opinions on this. So it's important for you to be aware. Pay attention, yes?
Where is that picture?
That's the Delta.
That's the Delta.
Yeah. Yes.
So, John, we've heard it, but why they already have the aqueduct system? So they're saying there's not enough water for LA in that area. So can you give us some little description on what they're trying to do?
It's a fascinating question that you're asking here. It's a very complex question. The governor has suggested. Now, this is if you're aware of the Peripheral Canal project that was back, I think, in 2010. Or maybe even further back, which we all had the opportunity to vote on, and it was turned down. Okay, that project was turned down. So it has been reintroduced, rebranded with the Cal Water Fix, which is Governor Brown's latest project, and his legacy, if you will, to provide water for the entire state of California, including the region that we represent, The Central Valley is the breadbasket of our country. We have ours here. We have agriculture here as well. And most people are apathetic about agriculture in the state of California. They drive through the valley, through Fresno, and they see the cotton farms, and they see all the trees and what have you. But to them, it's like, they're using all our water. This is where all our water is. Believe it or not, that area of California, including the Central Coast and the agriculture that we have in Santa Clara County, represents 1/3 of the state's budget. We export much of those products to the world. So not only are we the breadbasket to our own country, but we export products all over the country, all over the world. So is it a vital, important area? Without a doubt. So some are advocating that this is a water grab, grabbing water through the Central Valley into Southern California. Well, we're a diverse state, and we're growing exponentially. People aren't necessarily moving away in the same numbers that they're moving here. So water supply is most important to all of us that are here, those that are thinking of coming here, and those businesses that are growing and developing and creating job opportunities for all of us. So the water is coming from the Sierras. It goes into our dams and reservoirs. Then it gets into the rivers, and we extrude it down through the delta, through the pipeline, potentially, and into our regional areas. I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time on this, but it's so topical right now, and I'm asking you to pay attention to this because we are going to pay for it. Okay? We, being as the water users, we're going to be paying for this. Yes.
From where does the water, Uvis Dam water, from where does that come?
Uvis Dam?
Not Uvis,
Anderson?
No, San Luis.
Comes from the Delta.
So that's part of the infrastructure they would use.
That's right.
For this tunnel then.
That's correct. Well, the water will come through the Delta. We import, what I said, 50% of our water comes through the Delta, through San Luis. Now, we're also looking at building a new dam. I don't know if you've been following this, but the Water District has got an MOU, Memo of Understanding, with the San Benito and the Pacheco Water Districts to build a brand new dam off of Highway 152. Anderson Dam, which is our single largest dam in the region, is 90,000 acre-feet. This new dam will double that, approximately 180,000 acre-feet. So we're going through the process now of getting our funding. We've applied for Prop 1 money, seed money, which would be about $800 million that we would be using. There's a $2.7 billion budget on Prop 1 that $5.7 billion have applied for those funding. We're one. So this is on the books for future development, probably a 10, 15-year project out. But all these things that we're doing, folks, you and I are not going to benefit from this. Maybe some of you might live for another 100 years. But this is a 30-year, 40-year project out. But we got to pay for it today. We got to seed it today. Okay, so let's go on. Did I answer your question? Yes.
So this will be pipes underground or the aqueducts?
Both.
Open?
Both.
But the water...
The water comes through the aqueduct, comes through the delta. It comes to San Luis Dam. It's pumped up, and then it's pumped through the San Felipe pipeline from San Luis through North San Benito County to Santa Clara County up to Anderson, Coyote, Anderson, and then it flows into this valley. Got that picture?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else have a question on this? Yes.
What would you, excuse my voice, what would be a good resource to find unbiased information? I mean, I'm going to Google this. But
Oh, yeah, do it.
recommendations on, where you can get information on it?
Yeah, sure. You can go to our site, valleywater.org,
Okay.
and just put water fix or California tunnels. The state of California has tons of information.
Okay.
If you're an environmentalist are very involved in this project. Any environmental groups, fish, habitat, any of those groups will have their opinions. So, there's mounds of information on it.
Thank you.
Okay. So, where do we put all the water that I'm talking about? And we have a few places. Reservoirs and treatment plants are too, but most of it goes into the groundwater. Groundwater, which is our aquifers that hold more water than all the 10 reservoirs combined. You all familiar with groundwater? You all aware of what that is? It's water that we're sitting on top of right now. Why is groundwater so important? The simple fact is that groundwater is a finite resource. If we take out more than we put back in, we will eventually run out of groundwater. It also leads to subsidence, which we talked about a little bit ago, where we start seeing the ground sink. Now, here's some really interesting news. There was a report issued this past week, a satellite project that was coupled with the district and a university did a surveillance of all the aquifers and groundwater tables all over the United States. But they finite and pinpointed Santa Clara Valley. And we are at full level of our aquifers today. This is 5 years into a drought with the storm that we had this past year, plus your conservation, we are at capacity. Before that happened, we lost 60 feet of depth of our wells, of our aquifers. The valley, we had a meeting, I'm also on a committee, you heard me say, the San Luis Delta Mendota Water Authority. These are all the agricultures, growers, and also all the water suppliers and contractors from the state and the federal government, from Bakersfield to Sacramento, that are in this room. And they're the growers that I was talking about a few minutes ago. Their aquifers are not back up to 100%. They're at probably 50 to 60%. So they've got a lot more water to inject into their wells before they're back to higher level. If we get another storm like we did this past year, possibly all those wells will recover. Yes?
I've heard something, the word called compaction during the drought, that the land actually kind of crunch back together, so you're not going to be able to fill up as much as you have.
Well, that's also part of the subsidence issue that I was referring to. Yeah, when your water's not there, it's moist. It's moist underneath. It actually floats, and then it's gone. It sinks. And that's a very simplistic way of explaining and a visual way of doing it. There's more science behind all of that. If you want that, we can provide that to you as well.
Will it be able to fill up earlier capacity, or it's not going to be?
Well, we're almost at capacity now. Yeah. Now here's the conundrum that we're in. All the reservoirs throughout the state of California, except in Southern California, are filled to capacity. The Sierras had a late melt. Even before the melt started, all the dams from Shasta, Trinity, Oroville, Anderson, in our local region, Clara, were filled to capacity. So we have all these, and our aquifers are full. So we get another storm that we had like we did last year. Where's that water going to go? Anybody have an idea? Yeah, it's going right back into the ocean, Pacific Ocean. So hopefully we won't have flooding issues like we did, but we always have to be prepared for that, yes.
So by building this tunnel, we can fill up the aquifers down south then, or is that their intention?
Hypothetically, that's exactly why this is being proposed. And that's the reason why people are saying this is a water grab for Southern California.
So do we have a water bank? I've heard this thing, water bank. Santa Clara has a water bank down in King City or somewhere down there.